They gave each world a case number. That is the detail I could not move past in the months after Heron's Ridge went quiet. Not the fires. There were no fires because the Orvith Conclave's extinction lattice platforms do not use fire. Not the screaming. There was very little of that either because the delivery mechanism is fast and the atmosphere conversion is thorough. What I could not move past, sitting in the refugee processing bay on Meridian Station with a foil blanket over my shoulders and someone else's blood still on my left boot, was the paperwork. Case number OC 7714. Terminus, Heron. Status, contained. Filed, day 4 of the terminus sequence. Disposition, resolved. 41,208 people lived on Heron's Ridge. I know because I was the colony's census administrator. I kept the numbers. That was my job. Births, deaths, population shifts, resource allocations. I knew every settlement by its head count the way a shepherd knows a flock. And when the Orvith lattice activated over us, I was in the sub-basement of the administrative building running a quarterly audit. The air recyclers in the sub-basement ran on a sealed loop. I breathed recycled air for 19 hours while the atmosphere above me was quietly reclassified as uninhabitable. I came up into silence, into daylight that looked exactly right and felt completely wrong. The grain fields outside the window were still green. The settlement's water tower was still standing. There were no craters, no structural collapses, no visible damage of any kind. The Orvith do not damage infrastructure. They are efficient. They simply change the air composition above a designated zone to a mixture that human respiratory systems cannot process, hold it for 4 hours, and then allow the atmosphere to normalize. By the time it normalizes, the case is closed. I found my husband 2 streets from our home. I will not describe the specifics of how I found him. I will only say that the Orvith case file described the 41,208 people of Heron's Ridge as organic matter successfully contained. Heron's Ridge was case number OC 7714. There were 9 case numbers in total. 6.8 million people. 9 worlds. 11 days. The Orvith Conclave's declaration of terminus classified humanity as a terminal biological anomaly whose expansion trajectory represented an unacceptable contamination risk to adjacent settled space. They did not consult the Galactic Assembly. They did not issue a warning. They deployed 47 extinction lattice platforms simultaneously, activated them in sequence across our 9 outermost colony worlds, and then filed the results in a database that they titled, with characteristic precision, the Terminus Completion Archive. I read the full archive 3 months later, after Earth recovered a copy through an intelligence extraction I was never briefed on. I read it because someone had to, because the people who compiled it had never intended for anyone to read it except their own archivists. Because they had written it in the bureaucratic register of an organization that had never, not once, considered that the subjects of their documentation might one day be in a position to read it back to them. I read it twice. Then I applied for the witness position. Earth's response took 14 months to assemble. I know this is longer than it sounds, given what had been done to us, but the Iron Covenant was not built in haste. 930 warships, 47 target coordinates, 1 for each lattice platform, plus the Orvith Home System's orbital infrastructure, plus the Conclave's administrative seat at Vethra Station. Admiral Yusuf Amariose briefed his command staff for 6 hours before the first ship crossed the transit threshold. He was a deliberate man. He had lost 2 cousins on Colony Devereaux, case number OC 7718, and he moved with the particular stillness of someone who had decided, long before the briefing, exactly what was going to happen and was simply managing the sequence. He gave me the seat at the secondary communications console because I asked for it, and because I told him what I intended to do with it, and because he looked at me for a long moment and said, quietly, that he thought that was right. The fleet arrived at Orvith Space on a Tuesday. I remember the day of the week because I had been counting them since Heron's Ridge. I had a small notebook in my jacket pocket, an old paper one because I am old enough to have started keeping paper records before the colony's network infrastructure came online, and I had written the date of the terminus sequence at the top of the first page and I have been marking days underneath it ever since. 14 months and 11 days. 442 marks. The first lattice platform was at the outer edge of the Orvith system, a relay anchor they had left in standby mode since the terminus sequence completed. The Iron Covenant's advance wing reached it in 40 minutes. I watched the tactical display. The platform was a geometric structure about the size of a city block. Elegant, in an abstract way, the way a precisely calibrated instrument is elegant. The advance wing's lead frigate put 3 rounds through its primary housing, and the platform went dark. I keyed the open channel. I said, "Case number OC 7714, Terminus, Heron. Heron's Ridge. 41,208 people. Closed." The channel was broadcast on all Orvith frequencies. I had confirmed that before departure. Admiral Amario Say did not look at me. He kept his eyes on the tactical display. The second platform was deeper in-system, covering one of the Orvith's subsidiary trade lanes. It took the Iron Covenant's second strike group 22 minutes. I waited until the confirmation came through. Case number OC 7715, Terminus Del Rey. Colony Del Rey. 212,940 people. Closed. By the fourth platform, the Orvith Conclave had begun transmitting on the same open channel. The register was familiar, the same measured procedural language as the archive. They invoked frameworks of galactic law. They cited jurisdictional precedents. They referred to the Declaration of Terminus as a ratified internal policy instrument, legally distinct from an act of war. They asked to speak with Earth's diplomatic mission. I let them speak. I waited for each transmission to end. Then I read the next case number. Case number OC 7716, Terminus, Callaway, Maine. Colony Callaway, Maine. 408,603 people. Closed. There was no diplomatic mission. The Iron Covenant had not brought one. The Orvith shifted to a separate frequency. No intervention came. I suspect the rest of the galaxy had read enough of the Terminus Completion Archive to understand what had been done, and had made a calculation about the wisdom of stepping between Earth and its answer. The Iron Covenant took the 47 platforms in just under 9 hours. It was methodical work. There was no resistance worth describing. The lattice platforms were administrative infrastructure, not weapons platforms, and the Orvith had not expected to need a defense posture because they had not expected to be answered. That was the foundational error in their reasoning. They had classified humanity as a terminal anomaly, as a contamination, as a problem to be resolved, and they had not considered the possibility that problems sometimes read the case file and come to find you. After the 47th platform, the Iron Covenant moved to Vethra Station. I will not describe what the 930 warships of the Iron Covenant did to Vethra Station in detail. I will say only that Admiral Amario Say had reviewed the station's population figures beforehand, verified twice, and that the Iron Covenant's actions were proportionate and executed without excess or theater. Those who could evacuate, evacuated. Those who remained in the Conclave's administrative core made their own decision, and the Iron Covenant honored it. I read the last case number when the Vethra Station's primary structure went dark. Case number OC 7722, Terminus, Nevera, Deep. Colony, Nevera, Deep. 891,412 people. Closed. Then I put down the open channel key. I opened my notebook to the first page. Below the date of the terminus sequence and the 442 day marks, I wrote 2 things. The date and all case numbers read. I closed the notebook and put it back in my jacket pocket. Admiral Amario Say turned from the tactical display for the first time in 9 hours. He looked at me across the bridge. He did not say anything. Neither did I. There was nothing to say that the Iron Covenant had not already said, and nothing to add that the open channel had not already carried to every frequency in Orvith space. 6.8 million people have been filed as organic matter, successfully contained, in a database no one was supposed to read. We read it back. Every case number, every world, every name that Orvith had reduced to a status field and a date stamp and a clean, bureaucratic notation of resolution. The Iron Covenant left Orvith space 14 hours later. I kept my seat at the secondary communications console for the transit home. I looked out the viewport at the stars, which looked the same as they had before the terminus sequence and would go on looking the same long after every fleet and every archive was gone. The census record for Heron's Ridge were still on a server somewhere in the administrative building's basement. The Orvith had not bothered to delete them. They had not needed to. They had simply filed their own record over the top of ours and considered the matter closed. It was closed now. The numbers were the same. 41,208 people. Nothing changed that. The dead were still dead, and the grain fields outside the window were still green, and none of it meant anything except that the universe does not rearrange itself to mark what happens in it. We do that. We keep the records. We read the numbers back. That is what we went there to do. That is what we did.